but it would not accept those. That's contrary to most common open source wisdom, because you want the others to do the work for you. In single vendor commercial open source, you are doing the development by yourself, the company. But if someone comes along and actually makes a valuable contribution, it would be stupid to throw it away. So what you do is you require a rights transfer to you. So MySQL, the company, usually would say, oh, that's a great contribution. I'm sorry, we can't accept it unless you sign the copyright and other rights transfer agreement with us. So all the external code contributions that were made to MySQL, the database, for example, the JDBC, the Java adapter, were made by third-party developers, but they had to transfer all the rights to the commercial entity MySQL. And that maintained all the intellectual property rights that MySQL, the company, needed to maintain. Here's an idea of, and now I want to come to the goal and means of why in the first place a database company like MySQL would choose an open source approach, which is to build this open source community and see the benefits coming from that. So here is a rough idea of structure of the community. So there's the paying enterprise customer. For one paying enterprise customer with a substantial license fee, there may well be, not all open source firms do that, single vendor open source firms do it, but let's assume there are small scale sales of tutorials and training. There may be 1 to 20 casual customers, I call them here. But then there are all these non-paying users who use your software under the open source license, like easily a factor of 10,000 if your project is working well. On the revenue side, of course, all the money is being made on the enterprise customers. So the focus, one would think, of the software firm should be on the enterprise customers, because that's where all the money is being made, and that's true. That's where the sales focus is. But you also want to build up this community of non-paying users because of certain benefits that accrue from that. So let me come to that. The benefits that accrue are not really obvious, but when you think about it, what's happening, maybe they will become obvious. So there is the software, and people start to use it for free. And if it's good software, they just keep using it. But if they keep using it, there will still be problems. So what happens is that users will organize to help each other get the most out of the software. So they help, how do I configure MySQL in this situation? Or how do I write this little database script or so to do this? So basically you have, if you do it right, I'll come in a second how to do it right, if you have this growing community of users who don't contribute code, but who contribute ideas, who help each other, who make the project a viable project in an open source sense, ignoring code contributions. If you have that, you actually build this large base of non-paying users, which has multiple benefits. For example, in sales, one of the benefits is that a certain company may already be using the free version, your open source version of the product, but maybe that's only because the project that's being used is not mission critical. But if it turns mission critical, you may want, that customer company might switch over from being a free user to a paying user, because now the mission critical project actually needs support and a commercial license, what have you. For engineering, a benefit is that you can observe your community. You can listen in on all the discussions on how to improve the projects. You see all the bugs that surface much quicker, much broader. Let's assume you had only one customer. What does this one customer come up with? He has one usage scenario. He doesn't catch all the bugs. 1,000 users, even if they're non-paying, they catch a lot of more bugs. They have a lot more ideas of how to extend your project. And now that's product management, then to give you ideas where to go next. What are the highest what are the features of highest priority for the next release? There's lots and lots of feedback that is no intellectual property that you need to worry about, but that you get from your users as you scale up your community, even if like only a small percentage is actually paying you. So this open source community, this non-paying open source community, gives you lots of benefits. Here, support, I didn't mention that. Users who are helping each other write lots of documentation. So that's great. That lowers your support costs, because it used to be that people called you up on the phone. More and more, maybe that's your own experience as well, you just Google for the problem, the error number or the error statement you see on your screen, and a large community covering every possible angle will probably have covered your particular angle of problem, as opposed to what the documentation writers of the software company could address, which would address the majority but not the long tail of all the problems out there. So I would like to pick one business function, so I need to make sure I stay in time. So I'll just pick one business function. I'd be happy to talk about all the other benefits in more detail at some point of time too. I picked sales here. Engineering is closer to my own heart, but sales is usually the most stunning example. So you have a very different sales funnel for a single vendor commercial open source firm. You don't care about the top 3 steps here from a sales perspective. That's community management, a new business function I'll be mentioning or talking about in a second, because you just try to enable that people download, install, and use the software, and you don't get involved as a sales function with that, because there are these large numbers of people who do that, and of which only a small percentage will ever become paying customers. So you don't care about them. Community management cares about them. But what you care about is the signals that the users of the free open source version of your software are sending to you, and which might qualify them as leads in a traditional sense, so you would eventually call them up and see whether you can actually sell your commercial license to them. So then you switch over from qualifying someone who's just using the software to a lead, and then you have the traditional sales funnel where you convert a lead into a prospect and eventually a sale you make on your commercial license. And there are many best practices that I'm currently researching in my qualitative work with single vendor commercial open source startups. For example, how do you identify these leads? Well, the smartest thing to do is not to let the community completely organize themselves, but have a hand in the organization or in the community. Specifically, you want to give them a place that you run where they can meet. It's natural that they should meet on your website rather than some random domain somewhere else. So as you provide the forums and the wikis and the mailing lists, and even a software forge for software development and plugin development, you know where your users are. There's a natural place for them to go. There's a natural place to put their documentation and have their discussions and what have you. So best practice is to create that place where your community gathers, and there you can observe them, because you actually run the software. You get all the right signals. There's software out there that watches people on how they behave on websites and whether they send the right signals. That, for example, qualifies them as leads in the sales funnel. Just an example, one of the strongest indicators, of course, is if someone buys a tutorial in your web store. So many single vendor open source firms actually do not have a web store because they think they don't want to deal with the non-paying users. They only want to invest really into the paying users. But I think, and some of the smarter ones I think actually do that, you do want that web store, not because there's substantial revenue coming from it, but because it's a lead qualifier. If someone repeatedly buys training, well, maybe there's actually not just a private user, but maybe there's really a company. You can also look at the email address, of course. Maybe there's a company that's ready to make a purchase or that's ready to engage in further discussion at least. So, for example, if you just look at who registered on your site where you organize your community and you see, oh, there are like 3 or 15 different users, all from the same company. It's a large company. They may not know each other. It's like Bank of America, and it's very different departments. What if I networked them? What if I told them that they're all using our software? So you start organizing, that's the best practice, you organize the free users in potential customer companies, so they become a more important force or power in that potential customer organization. So when it actually